what can I say? In my family, we were agave growers before being tequila producers, and actually that's 5 generations ago. The blue agave is not native from the highlands. Actually, it was two of my ancestors, great-great-grandparents, the ones that had the first 2 distilleries in the area. One in the county of Arandas and one in the county of Jesus Maria. And they used to say, I mean, I don't even know how they thought on going to the Tequila Valley and bringing these plants into this area. It was completely unknown, the plant. When they were bringing those plants that used to be in how do you say, carriages, pulled by oxen, and when they were passing town in this area, there was no poverty. It was basically misery. It was so poor, the land, and so poor the people, that the story is that when they were passing town, the people got excited looking at that thing and saying, pineapples, pineapples. And they were going to the carriage to get those plants, thinking that they would have something to eat. To their bad luck, they found out that it was not edible. But still nowadays, when we harvest the agave, we keep on calling them piñas. And piña means pineapple. So that is one of the origins of the name piña. Because the people was convinced that it was piña. And also there was stories in the family of how their employees at that time, they used to call them masters at that time, and they would say, hey master, now you are paying us to plant this damn plant that is not edible. Someday you will have to pay us to get rid of it so we can plant some corn, beans, or something that actually we can eat. So this plant, what is good for? So they had no idea on tequila production and on agave and nothing like that. Those original distilleries were destroyed, got abandoned and got destroyed during the Mexican Revolution in the 1910s, and then the Cristeros War in the 1920s. And distilleries built of adobe, 25, 30 years of abandonment, they came crashing down. Actually, my grandfather, Felipe, in this case, Don Felipe Camarena, the only thing that could save from his original grandfather's distillery, it was the Tahona stone. And that was it. So when he built La Alteña around 1937, the only piece that he brought from that abandoned and destroyed distillery was that stone. Nowadays, we have the second. The original Tahona stone, it is in front of my brother's distillery. When he started building his distillery, he said that he wanted to use a Tahona, and he said, hey, can you allow me to use this Tahona stone? And I said, well, yes, I don't think it has enough weight, but yeah, you can use it if that's what you want. At the end of the day, they never produced using the Tahona, and now it is in front of his distillery. And I told him, well, that is mine. Whenever I need it, it will come back. Of course, I will never ask him to give it back, but it was part of the history, and I think that he has the same right, even if it was a La Alteña that he was not part of. Yeah. But he, in the family, he has the same right to have that stone there to show the origins of our family growing agaves and producing tequila. So we started as agave growers and then tequila producers, but actually we became official tequila producers after my grandfather built La Alteña in 1937, because the production of the initial distilleries, they had no brand and they had no name. They would sell everything in bulk to the local cantinas, and that was it. They would produce probably 1.5 months per year. That was it. Only on the dry season, when the people was not busy in other things in the fields, that's when they would produce tequila. So I said, well, it was first moonshine, no brand, no name, and most importantly, probably not paying taxes at that moment, because everything was cash and sold it locally, and that was it. And how my grandfather became also a tequila producer, he usually said that everything is related to the agave and the cycles of agave. As you know, in the last 7 years, we had a shortage of agave. This is over. The two people who kind of stopped me in front of the distillery was people offering agave, because now everybody's kind of desperately trying to get their agave harvest. The price is coming crashing down, and it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I mean, in 2 more years, the value of the agave will be equal to zero, nothing. And most of the agave will be rotting in the fields. The people will get disappointed. They will stop planting agave, and around 9 or 10 years from now, we will have another shortage. I mean, in my lifetime, I have already lived 3 of those. And it's usually Some years there's plenty of it, and some years nothing. Actually, I am an agronomist, and my thesis in college, it was a market study of the agave plants, and it was so clear how every 16 years we will have a cycle. Every 16 years, why? 2 lifetime cycles of the agave. And in one of those times, my grandfather that kept on planting agave, even when we had no distillery in the family anymore, he used to have contracts to supply agave to some distilleries in the Valley of Tequila. And in one of those events, there was so much agave that they told him, well, Don Felipe, you know what? We don't want your agave. We don't need your agave. Hey, but we have a contract. We don't care about the contract. You can sue us if you want, but we are not receiving any of your agave. So his only choice, it was, well, if I let the agave in the field, it will rotten, and I will lose everything. So what should I do? Do what my grandfather did. Transport the agave into tequila. And he used to say, well, if I may sell some, fine. Otherwise, just be patient with me and I will trade them. But it was a way to preserve what he was doing. Yeah. So as I said, everything in our family history and everything is related to the cycles of the agave. And how is the agave at a particular moment, why originally all tequila was 100% agave. Now why we have mixtos? Because eventually in one shortage of agave, the government decided to allow the use of some sugar. So we could keep on exporting tequila, we could keep on selling tequila, the government wanted their tax money, so they said, okay, I will give you permit to use some sugar. And the first mixtos were 70% agave and 30% sugar. And another crisis, and then it became 60% agave, 40% sugar. Another crisis, or shortage of agave, and it became 51% agave, 49% sugar, which is the actual mixto. They couldn't move that more because then it would become, if the majority was going to be sugarcane, it would be more rum than tequila, and therefore there would be no denomination of origin because it could be produced anywhere if your main raw material was sugarcane instead of agave. That's why it has never moved from that. So what happened in another shortages? Let's reduce the amount of alcohol. So originally the tequila, when I was a kid, all of the tequila was 46%. It was 92 proof, all of it. But in one of those crises, then it was allowed to start selling tequila at 80 proof, another 75 proof, and actually 70 proof is legal in Mexico. So there's a lot of tequilas that are 35% agave. So instead of raising the price, there's not enough agave, add a little bit of more water to that and keep on selling it at the same price, but you are selling more water and less agave, less tequila. So again, everything related to the cycles of the agave, the shortages, and then the overproduction, and then another shortage. What is really surprising for me is the fact that over 120 years after that, we keep on repeating the same mistake over and over and over. When the agave is expensive, when there's a shortage of agave, everybody in the area gets excited. Oh, look at my neighbor, my cousin, my compadre, they're making a lot of money, they are getting rich with this plant. Let's go plant agave, I want to get rich too. So even people that never had an agave plant in their life, but they have a few square feet garden, they will put an agave there, thinking, well, someday you will grow up and you will make me rich. As everybody's doing the same, 7 years go by and surprise, there's more agave what the industry can process. The price comes crashing down, the people is losing money, they get disappointed, and then they decide, I don't want to hear about agave anymore in my life. Everybody stops planting agave. Another 7 years go by, surprise, there's another shortage. And this has been happening for 120 years. It's surprising how we keep on doing the same mistake over and over, thinking that this time the result will be different. So in our case, and in the case of my family, we started first as agave growers, but the other thing, it was in those periods of shortage of agave, if you depend only on what's available in the open market, you may end up acquiring young agave, what I would consider second quality or third quality agave. And the question is, with the second quality agave, can you really produce first quality tequila? And the answer is no, you can't. With a first quality agave, you have a chance to produce first quality tequila. I mean, if your process is not right, you will destroy that chance, but at least you had the chance. But if you begin with a second quality raw material, there's no way that you will produce first quality finished product. So that is why in my family, we keep on being dedicated to produce or to grow our own agave, so we do not depend on what's happening in the open market, and we have the availability of raw material whenever we need it, and we can control the stage of maturity of those agaves in order to be able to produce first quality tequila. So this is one of those fields, and this is what we did. I never thought that I would be producing tequila ever. To me, when I was a kid, well, kind of I had in mind that my father would live forever, so he would keep on producing tequila. What I wanted to do, it was to produce the raw material for him. And I got in love with the agave plants because since I was a kid, if we were not in school, my father would say, well, there's no weekly allowance for you. You want money? Go to work, go to the fields. And then he used to say, the guy in charge, hey, do not treat him better just because he's my son. He has to work the same as everybody else. If he doesn't do it, let me know, and he will get paid. So I used to come and work the fields, and I got in love with this plant. To me, it's so magnificent, this plant. I mean, the behavior of the plant, which is completely different from other plants. This plant during the day is dormant, is not breathing, is not feeding, is not transpiring, is not doing anything. It shuts down in order to protect the humidity inside, to avoid losing any water. And it is at night when it makes all of its living functions instead of in the day. So exactly the opposite of a green plant, so behaves differently. Another thing is, this plant, the more stressed it is, I mean, this plant doesn't like too much water. In the places where there's water in the field, the plant doesn't grow. They don't like water. So it is surprising how much organic material they can produce with almost no water. Yeah. So to me, that is surprising. Is that the efficiency of this plant is so unique. And the more stressed out the plant is, the more sugar content will have, because the plant all of its life, it is just accumulating carbohydrates, sugar, with only one purpose in mind: sexual reproduction. Reaching maturity, growing achiote, producing flowers, and producing seeds, get cross-pollinated, and therefore sexual reproduction. Of course, we don't usually allow this to happen, because in that process, all of the sugar will be consumed. So if we allow this to happen, then there's no more sugar to produce tequila. So unfortunately, again, during the last 100 and something years, we usually are cutting the quiotes. The moment they start sprouting, we cut the quiotes because we don't want the sugar to get consumed in that process. After so many years doing that, there is no real sexual reproduction in the agave plant, and the result is that nowadays all of the blue agave plants in Mexico are exactly the same genetics. They are clones. The risk for the future is what happens if a disease attacks the agave. Well, if it infects some agaves, it will infect them all, because there is no natural resistance, because all of the agaves have exactly the same genetics. A few years ago, we started a project with the National University of Mexico, Tequila Interchange Project, and a couple other tequila producers. A project that consists of, or we call it the bat-friendly project, which consists on allowing a small percentage of agaves reaching maturity to actually produce flowers and seeds. And why bat-friendly? Well, because again, even when this plant flowers, during the day the flowers are shut down. At night the flowers will open up and they will start producing nectar. In studies that we have made, 95% of the nectar in the flowers are producing between 10 at night and midnight, in those 2 hours. So who's there to pollinate the agaves? It is not the bees, it is not the hummingbirds, it is the bats, the ones that makes the pollination on the agave. And the pollinators of the agave are migrant species of bats. They come all the way from the Sonora Desert, South U.S. and North Mexico, all the way to Central Mexico, to Guerrero State. So whenever they fly above Jalisco, they couldn't find any food. So 7 or 8 years ago, that species of bats was in the list of endangered species, because there was no food in their migration pattern. So fortunately nowadays we can say, well, we succeeded in one direction, which is the fact that the population of bats has recovered and they are off the list of endangered species. And while we kind of offered the agaves, it was a win-win situation. We said, okay, I will give you food, you will give me sex. I mean, sex for my plants. But that is the exchange. Okay, I will give you food and you will bring sex. You will bring cross-pollination. The other thing is what happens if there's a cross-pollination between blue agaves in this field? Nothing, because they have exactly the same genetics. So fortunately, the bats can fly up to 80 miles on a single night just to feed. So we count on the bats to be coming from some creeks from the tequila area, from Michoacan, to visit some other species of agave, and then come here. And then we have this cross-pollination, and then we may eventually someday have natural resistance, because this disease will come. The question is when. It could be tomorrow, it could be next year, it could be in 200 years from now. You never know, but someday it will come. So the idea of this project is to have some plants that eventually could survive that disease, and out of those we can rebuild the whole tequila industry. So that is one aspect that we are working also, I would say, trying to protect the future of the family and the next generation. To say, hey, I mean, I won't be here forever, same as I thought my father would do, but he didn't. I won't be here forever. And the idea is to leave something sustainable for the family, to keep on producing tequila and growing agave for another generations to come.